All right, guys, we are back. This is Lex over here, joined today by a very special guest who became infamous or famous, or I don't know how to call it, because you're the one who caught that cheater, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
definitely caught the cheater.
yeah, and that was gonna be your first top ever in this game, actually. Now that I think about it, but hey, here we are, new set, new top. Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So, what leader did you ended up taking this weekend?
Yep, took green purple Dofi. Been playing it a ton on the sim beforehand, trying to get as much practice as I could before this Knoxville regional,
Mm-hmm.
and it came out pretty successful. Went 7-2 in Swiss, got in top 25, and then ended up playing the next day against the guy that actually ended up winning it, the Zoro player, who was really good. Um, so yeah, just played pretty well, but just wasn't good enough, I guess, against him. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
pretty successful. Top 32. Can't complain about the deck. Really enjoyed playing it, and really enjoyed just everything that it can do.
Absolutely, and that's something that you and I also like tested quite a bit. That you even have your super cool proxies.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so tell me a little bit about why you gravitated towards Doflamingo. What is it
So
about
I've
the
been
deck? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've definitely been a green and purple player pretty much throughout the entirety of the game. So I played Kid, and I played Kid a lot in OPO2 and OPO3. Then I played Kaido pretty much only in OPO1. So I've just been loving both of those colors. So when you combine both of them, I don't know. It just really, I kind of gravitated towards that when I was looking at
Mm-hmm.
all the new OPO4 leaders. So when I saw this guy, I'm like, I gotta play this. So I've just been playing this pretty hard. It was either this or Katakuri going into it, but thinking about having to play at least probably 3 to 4 mirrors was
Mm-hmm.
not something interesting to me. So I'm like, let me just go with this guy. And it's funny because I almost actually played the same amount of mirrors against this guy as I would have against Katakuri. I played two against two other Doflamingos in Swiss, and then I played three Katakuris in Swiss.
Oh, I was about to ask how many categories did you actually ended up playing against?
Yeah,
Wow.
I played against three. Yeah, I mean, the one Katakuri I lost to just had the nuts. I mean, every single turn just killed everything I had and just couldn't do anything about it. The other two couldn't address my Guild Tesoro on board, which is pretty
Mm-hmm.
much the one card that like saves you in that match. So couldn't address it. So when they can't do that, it's just they can't do anything.
Yeah, you steamroll. So let me ask you this, because you did end up playing against Soro on the very last round, and interesting enough, I really think Soro was just underrepresented, as opposed to
Mhm.
something like Law. I did see a lot of Law in the room. I didn't see too many Soros in the room, but we did see a lot of Whitebeard in the room. Were you kind of expecting I guess like that representation of these decks at all, or no?
Yeah, so definitely expected Whitebeard to be a top player. I definitely expected Whitebeard and Kata to be one of the either the top two decks or two of the most represented out of the top. Law, I think, was an also really good pick to bring into Knoxville because it's a very good deck, but I feel like it needs a good pilot for it to be piloted successfully.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of the people that have been playing Law since OPO1, OPO2 probably were very successful this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's when Law just does Law things at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Like
Mm-hmm.
if you draw the cards, Law can just do Law things. So if you're a good Law player, you are gonna do well this weekend. So but I was kind of surprised about the Zoro. There was only one in top 32, and I played against one in Swiss. But besides that, I didn't hear a lot of other people playing against Zoros. I think people just kind of are over Zoro and wanted to switch it up and just try something new. They'll probably go to Zoro after maybe like a couple weeks of trying these new decks, and if they don't find success with them, or they just don't have as much fun with them as they did with Zoro, they'll probably go back. But I think lots of people are just trying different things instead of trying to just stick with whatever they were playing for OPO3, which was Zoro.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my case. I ended up playing Rebecca, which came out a hot mess. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about your deck. So let's go ahead and what do you show your deck? I think a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
people
yeah,
have reported on it, and it was like public information ever since you top. But let's go ahead and take a look anyway.
yeah, definitely. So pretty much, we're running the film package. So obviously, we're gonna go with the four Buenafesta. It's just a 2K. It's a searcher. Can't complain about it. Mostly just play it on your first or second turn. If you need to find a film, you can still play it later, but it's always going to be a 2K that's searchable by Nami, which is fantastic. But
Mm-hmm.
just at the end of the day, it's a searcher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Play four of. For sugar, card is busted in your Zoro match if you try to play just the board control version. So like playing this card. in anything that's going to have lots of lower units is just incredible. It's really good in the Katakuri match as well, resting their blockers. It's non-searchable, which kind of stinks, but besides that, it's so good. Especially if you can play it on your later turns. If you have a 10-drop Doflamingo, if you can play this against Katakuri on on the turn that they would be going to tend on, it's so good. Just being able to be like, okay, you can either do something like play a searcher or something to be able to rest it and then swing into it, or you can play your 10-drop and then I'm gonna freeze it for 2 turns straight because I have 2 Doflamingos in hand. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible. And then the rest of our 2 drops are gonna be for Chopper. Card is pretty good in the Zoro and Law matchups, being able to put a Dawn on him and then rest I think it's a 2-cost or less. Yeah. Being able to rest a 2-cost or less is incredible. Pairing that with the Sugar, you play the Sugar to rest something, then you put a Dawn on the Chopper and then swing into it, resting something else, and then you use your leader to swing into it. You're able to clear multiple bodies, especially if you can get multiple Choppers on board. It's just helps with your board control. Most of the time I don't play it, but in the Zoro and Law matchups, that's the only times when you would see me actually playing this card.
Okay.
And then Shiki, pretty much just 2 copies. Pretty much just a 2K the whole weekend. I only triggered it one time in my Zoro match in Swiss, because I was able to see it and then was able to use it to effectively take out, I think it was a Curly, and use my leader swing to be able to take out the Buggy and some other cards that were on his board, but I only used it once. It didn't really come up any other times for the whole rest of the tournament. It was just a 2K.
Okay.
Moving on to 3 drops is going to be for Nami. Staple, it's your searcher. It's incredible. Every single opponent will always prioritize killing this than going for life. So just swinging this and then using, cards to restand it, or your, heavy hitter blockers later on when you establish those in the game, it's just really good. Going second and playing this and being able to search is really good. It's kind of busted, but yeah, just for Nami. If you don't run for Nami in the film version of this deck, then you are just not playing this deck correctly.
Absolutely. And that's something that I always say too, is just like defending your leader and defending Nami is literally the same thing, because they're both 5k, so why not? So yeah, definitely one of the most powerful cards.
Now we're going to get into one of the really busted cards. It's going to be the 4 Uta. Uta is incredible in pretty much every single match. Just a Dawn -1, being able to block and then use Dawn -1 effect to be able to rest something that's 5 cost or less. It helps in every single match. It's just busted. At the end of the day, even if you don't use its effect, it's still like you can use it as like a weenie blocker. So against like yellow, you just use it to block their big mom swing. It's I don't know. Uta is just an incredible card.
Something that I just realized too, or like I realized along the way, is that it's also not a once per turn. So if you're able to block, restand it with Spiderweb, and then you're able to activate the effect once again. So that's like like 3 for 1 in just one card. Well, probably 2 with it.
It's also really good to use it with Punk Gibson, so you can use its effect to rest something. You block something, rest something, and then use Punk Gibson to rest another thing. I mean, you're resting 2 things and then blocking out of an attack. So it's effectively you're getting rid of 3 swingers with 1 block and 1 event.
Right.
So it's really good. And then I went to go with the route of the 4-drop 6Ks. I did not have enough Zoros in my bulk. I don't know where they are, so I just went with the Bins from the starter deck. Zoro would have been a better pick. It would have looked nicer, but it is what it is. Bins worked. But pretty much just dropping him. If you don't have any of your other film cards when you play your 7-drop Luffy, pretty much that's the only reason why he's in here. Most of the time he's just a 1K, but he's got some decent pressure against Whitebeard since it's just a base 6K. But besides that, mostly just a 1K counter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on to the lifeblood of the deck, pretty much is your Guild Tesoro. If these things stick, you just pretty much win the game. Just drawing 2 additional cards every turn is just absolutely busted. 4, I think, is too much since you don't really run, at least I don't run the Queens. Some variants run Queen. I'm not really a fan of that. But, so you can't really discard it, so drawing 4, or having 4 in the deck is just not, I guess, an option for me, because when I had 4 previously, I would be drawing multiples every single game, but now I think with 3 you're drawing just enough. Sometimes you don't see it, which is kind of sucks, but for the majority of the time, I would rather not see it some games than see it too much every game.
So, out of curiosity, for the Guilty Sword, do you have to play? Do you feel like you have to play it every single matchup?
Not every match. I feel like it's kind of like in some matches it's kind of like a win more card,
Mm-hmm.
but in like your Whitebeard matches, they can't anything that an opponent can't address your Guild Disorder, you always play it. So like for an example, for like your Whitebeard match, you always play it. What else? Your green purple Dolphy match, you always play it. Let's see. Yellow can kill it with their Thunderbolts and and put it to bottom of life with Katakuri, so that's kind of iffy. And then red can red Zoro can just kill it with either a jet pistol or they can reduce the power and then use a
Mm-hmm.
fire fist to kill it. But besides that, if a general rule of thumb, if they can't pop your Guild Tesoro or get rid of it in any way, then always play it on curve. But if you can't play it on curve, then playing it when they want to put their, like for example for yellow, when they want to play their 10 drop, that's when you want to play this because then they can't address it and then you 10 drop them back and then draw two more cards.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I kind of ran a little tech card, which kind of came in amazing to be honest. It's my Diamante. Diamante is effect he's a blocker, and then on Dawn X1 at the end of my turn, if I have two Dawn that are active, which is pretty much what the leader ability gives me,
Mm-hmm.
you can restand. So playing this in any match is kind of busted. If you don't have the Guild Tesoro, I will always play this. The reason why I opted for this rather than Queen is that on my 5 Dawn turn, I did not want to Dawn minus and then not be able to play my Luffy the next turn. I thought that was kind of, it doesn't really synergize with the deck very well. So like playing Diamante at any time is going to be great because like on my 5 Dawn turn, I can play him. Next turn, I can swing with him if I want to, but most of the time I would just play a Luffy. But if I'm going second, then I play this on my 6 Dawn turn and I play my Luffy the next turn. I can still swing with this and then restand it the next turn. But being able to just have a 6K blocker, 6K blockers are always going to be good. Obviously, Luffy's next up, so 7K is going to be even better. But 6K blocker will always be good. Being able to block your opponent's leader swing if they don't attach anything to it, it just forces your opponent to attach more Dawn than they want to swing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. And it,
and then it restands at the end of turn, so it's like a mini 7 cost kid.
7 cost
But,
kid, right?
yeah,
Yeah. I was thinking about that actually.
can't complain. Can't complain about it.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Have you seen the alt art of that version?
Yes, I have. I
Yeah.
have one, but I would need another one to be able to run them because I can't do one-on-one.
Oh man, yeah. It's actually one of my favorite alt arts aside from like the cheaper ones as well. But yeah. All right, let's talk about this monster of a
sir.
card.
Luffy, 7-drop Luffy is the MVP of your deck. If you're seeing him with multiples of your Utas and multiple of your Namis, it puts in so much work. Being able to establish 2 bodies for 7 Dawn is just busted, especially if you're on your evens and you're going second. You play it on your 8 Dawn turn, you play this, and then you search with a Nami, or you just play this, and then you're able to play an Uta out. Playing 2 blockers for 7 Dawn is busted.
Yeah.
And especially the power level at being 7K and then playing an Uta blocker is just it's incredible. If you're seeing him, most of the time you are having more board control. As long as you play it right, you're gonna have more board control than your opponent. And being able to use him in Spider's Web is just, I mean, you're pumping it up to 7 or from 7 to 11K, and then restanding it. Like your opponent has to invest so much Dawn to be able to get over him. It's MVP. MVP.
Absolutely.
And then another incredible card and new addition from the new set is the 10-drop Dofi. If you're seeing him, since he's not searchable, if you're seeing him, most likely, as long as you don't see too many copies early, you're most likely just going to stall your opponent out. They can't do anything. Being able to force your opponent to just not restand any of their units is just an incredible ability. Just pretty much be like, okay, I'm going to play this guy, and then you can't do anything next turn besides play bodies. Go ahead. And then they were going to play a body or two, and they're like, okay, I'll play another one. And then they have just 1 or 2 swings left, while you still have multiple blockers with your Luffy blocker or your Utu blocker, or you might have a Diamante on board. It's just, your opponent really can't do anything to your board. It's just, they just have to stall out a turn, and then if you do it again, they're most likely dead that next turn. They just can't do anything.
Yeah, no. Every time I see someone playing back-to-back Doflamingos, I just think how disgusting that play is. It's
Yeah, I mean, It's your opponent really can't do
Yeah.
anything at that point.
In the words of our local Peter, scary.
Yes, it's very scary.
All
Moving
right.
on to the events, we're gonna go with Force Spiderweb. This is just a given. I mean, plus 4K, being able to restand something. Half the time when I'm restanding stuff, depending on the board state, I'll just restand either my Nami or a Guild Tesoro, so they can't swing into it. So if they want to invest more Dawn to swing into my 7-drop Luffy, that's completely fine. Sure, they can, but Spider's Web just being able to restand anything and not the thing, not the character that it gave plus 4K to is just an incredible effect. I honestly probably think it should have been the other way, where it would just restand whatever it's buffing. But
Yeah, no, absolutely.
and I make some good cards, man. And this is one of those really good cards from the new set. So
Absolutely, yeah.
Spider Web is a must.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be where the one card that I might switch up moving forward would be for Thunder Bagua. I might run it at 3 and then put in like a Paradise Waterfall, because I think just restanding something is incredible. But the effect of Thunder Bagua, if you're able to go down to 2 life early and ramp, especially if you open with like more like your 7 drops and your Guild Tesoros and your 10 drops in hand, if you open up more of like a higher end hand or higher cost hand, being able to go down in life early and then just use that use multiple Thunder Baguas in a row to be able to ramp is just incredible. Like, it puts your opponent in a really hard position because they don't want to swing at you, but then like they feel like they can just kind of like take your hand because you're just not countering out of their early swings, so they're just going to keep swinging at you. But then like and using like a Thunder Bagua or 2 in one turn is just like your opponent just like, oh, it catches them off guard. You ramp a whole Dawn. So sometimes you can get your Luffy out a turn early if you take enough damage early, which can be very pivotal in the matchup if you're able to establish a 7-drop Luffy 2 turns back to back before they can really get to their bigger drops, and just be able to establish so much pressure, because most decks in this format want to put one character down that takes up all of their Dawn or a majority of their Dawn. So once you put a 7-drop Luffy down, their leader swing doesn't do anything anymore. So they can't do anything. They're going to play one card and they're going to pass. So being able to establish that as early as possible, like I said, it was the MVP of the deck. If you can establish that earlier, then it's just going to make your game even more. You're going to be able to control the board even more, and it's going to make it even easier for you to win.
Yeah. Did the trigger ever came up for that card?
Most of the time, no. I don't even think I triggered it once, because most of the time when someone was swinging, they still had another body on board, and I'm like, okay, I still have 2 Dawn left. I'll just use it to be able to get out of that last swing, and then I'll still get that Dawn. It just didn't really come up in a situation where both my Dawn were already tapped, and I was already, at more than 2 life, where I wouldn't have been able to just use the effect to be able to do plus 4K and get the Dawn as rested. So I don't think I triggered it once. Every single time I saw it, I'm like, I could pop it, but then I could also just save it. Just being able to, as long as you play the deck right, you're using an event almost every single turn if you have them, to be able to defend yourself. So I knew that I was going to be going down to 2 life pretty relatively early, and then once you get down to about 1 or 2 life, that's when you start defending heavily, and by that time you're going to have your 7-drop Luffy out, so you're going to be able to defend a lot with that.
Okay, awesome.
And then last card of the deck is going to be for Punk Gibson. Very good into the yellow matchup, also into the Whitebeard matchup if they leave their blockers out. Just being able to use Punk and then rest a blocker, especially their Marcos, is just really good if they're not running just the pure Strawbeard version. Resting any blocker or any just potential swinger with this is incredible. Even playing like in the mirror match, and if your opponent doesn't think that you if you don't have an Uta out, but they do, they're gonna be like, oh, I'm fine. I have an Uta out. I just won't swing with it. Then you use this to rest their Uta. Now their whole game plan changes because their Uta is rested and they can't really do anything about that now. And it's just free swings into it. It's just Punk Gibson is still a busted card. It has been since set one. But it's still just a completely busted card.
Absolutely, and then this leader just takes complete advantage of it, because that ability of being able to develop board, well, resending 2 Dawn up. We saw it in Sanji, but Sanji didn't really took off. I don't think it will ever take off as much as Doflamingo has. Now I do have some question, because I remember you were playing around with the 5 cost extra card or event card that you don't have anymore.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like the new 5-drop event.
I think it
I
has
don't
like a
even.
silly name, like the weak does not have a chance to choose how to die, something
Yeah,
like that, right?
something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So I was running at that initially, but it felt a little too clunky, and using 5 Don to kill something didn't really feel too right because most of the time you're going to be like the game plan, at least for the way that I play the deck, was that I want to take life early and then just go for straight board control. And the second they tap all of their characters, I'm going to play my Dofi and stun it, and then I'm going to swing into your characters after that, or just go for game if you're at low enough life.
Mm-hmm.
So like with that card, like going for board control then is a little too early in my opinion. And just using up 5 Don, I would much rather play either a Diamante or my Tesoro, or
Mm-hmm.
even just playing an Uta blocker, Nami, whatever the case may be, and then using the rest of the Don to swing out. But just spending 5 Don to be able to um, rest something and kill something, it didn't really come up, and I would have only ran it at one copy if I did. It's just I wasn't a fan of it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other people that I played in Swiss that were running the same deck in the mirror match were, I think, either one of them or both of them were running it, and it didn't really come up for them, so it was kind of like a dead card for them.
Mm-hmm.
So wasn't
Yeah,
really a big fan of it, but I would rather just go with more consistency than play like a one of something
yeah,
like
it
that.
for sure felt like a card that it's more like playing catch up as opposed to developing your board, which is kind of what you want to do
Mm.
on the earlier turns. And as you said, your strategy was just taking life. Now let's talk about real quick. So typically, do you want to go first with this deck, or do you rather go second?
Um, Most of the time, you want to go second. Being able to establish your Nami and then search with it the first turn you play it is really good. It just depends on the matchup. I feel like the
Mm-hmm.
most of the time you want to go second. You want to go second in the only. I feel like the only time you want to go first is in your blue matchup because you do not want them to establish their Mihawk on curve because you don't want to be at your 8 Don and then go, okay, I play my Luffy Uta, and then like, okay, I'm gonna go Mihawk, bottom deck your Luffy. So you want to be able to, if you go first, you can establish your Luffy on your 7 Don turn, and
Mm-hmm.
then your opponent's gonna go to 8 Don. So then they have a whole turn where they can't establish a big body, and they would have to play the Kaido. So then at that point, you can be like, okay, I'll just swing 5 with my Nami or Uta, whatever the case may be, and then swing with 7 with your Luffy, and then so like it forces your opponent to be like, okay, I'm not going to get that much value out of it because you're going to spend your whole turn playing a Kaido to bounce either both of them, or using 9 of your Don to play a Mihawk to bottom deck the Luffy. So either way, your opponent's kind of still on the back foot at that point
Mm-hmm.
because you're able to get two swings in and block that turn beforehand as well if you needed to the first turn you play them. So I
Yeah.
think yeah. So just blue is the only matchup you really want to go first, but everything else you really want to go second because your Nami searches on your second turn, so your 4 Don turn. That is going to be the most important thing that you're going to be doing because
Mm-hmm.
I think this card, if you're whiffing on Nami consistently, you're hurting. You're going to be in a bad spot because you're not going to be able to find your 2Ks and you're not going to be able to find cards like your Luffy or your Uta to be able to play out consecutively turn after turn.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now let's go over matchups. Do you remember them all? Like you had 9 matchups of Swiss, one in Top Cut.
Yeah, yeah, I think I remember him. So pretty much round one was Rebecca. Won that. It was the guy wasn't a bad Rebecca player. It was just he just didn't see the cards. Made a couple misplays, but besides that, it's just he didn't have the cards he needed to be able to answer me. And I found 2 sugars for both of his Orlumbus, so I think Orlumbus is just really needed in that matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to rest his Orlumbus and then swing out with big numbers at his Orlumbus for 2 turns in a row kind of just killed his whole game plan. And by the time he got his Luffy out, it was already too over. Already over. I had too much board established, and he just couldn't do anything. Round two, I played. What did I play round two? It's a good question. Forgot round two, but round three I played Zoro. Pretty much went into it, and the guy's like, he saw my leader, and he's like, "Oh, this is a great matchup for me. This is gonna be like, not easy, but he's like, I have an 80% win rate against this deck." I'm like, okay,
Interesting.
I hadn't played against Zoro yet, so I'm like, okay, well this sucks. Go into it. Literally just play only board control. Didn't really swing at life until the end, and then I would just give him like 1 life here and there with leader swing for 5. So if he didn't want to take it, then he's going to pitch the 1 or 2 cards he has in hand to be able to counter out of it. But besides that, I mean, I just controlled his board, used sugar to rest his stuff. Just he didn't. I mean, by the end of the game, I had 4 blockers, and I already played a 10-drop Dofi, so there's nothing you could
Yeah.
really do. I was just full board control. He had no cards, and then by the time I gave him cards in hand, I mean, I still had a life. So even if he had unblockable Luffy or a Diable Jambe, I had enough counter in hand. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
had by the end of the game. I mean, he couldn't address my Guild Tesoro, so by the end of the game, I think I had like 10 or 12 cards in hand. So like
Oh
no
wow.
matter what, he was kind of over.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the next round I played a Katakuri. I won because he misplayed and swung with I think 1 or 2 of his big moms early, and then I was able to stun them 2 turns in a row with Dofi. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I'll take the misplay. If he just kept them standing and just kept playing just big mom, big mom, big mom, I probably would have lost that. But I was able to freeze him twice in a row, so that a leader and 2 of his big moms, so that really helped in that matchup. And then the next round, I played another Katakuri. Yeah, and then I lost that one. Oh, round 2, I played Whitebeard. That's what it was.
Mm.
And Guild Tesoro stuck, drew so many cards. Just there's nothing he could do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, round 4, or no, sorry, round 5 was another Katakuri. That was my first loss. That's when the dude just hit the guy had the nuts. So can't complain about it. He was running the Yamato tech in Katakuri, so he went 8-drop to bottom deck my Luffy into Yamato. I played a Guild Tesoro. Then he Thunderbolted it early. Then he went the next turn he played Katakuri to bottom deck my Luffy. Then the next turn he played Yamato to kill my second Guild Tesoro. Once that happened, it was kind of over. I had no way to draw cards. I wasn't really drawing Nami that game, so I just didn't have cards in hand, and he just was able to burn everything and swing for game.
Mm-hmm.
Next round was, let me think. What was the next? I played 2 Dofis. That's what it was. Played 2 mirror matches back to back. Won both of those. Neither of them saw the cards they needed. I saw Nami into Guild into Luffy for one of the games, and then I saw Nami, and then I didn't see Guild that game the second time, but I saw Nami into Luffy and Uta blocker consistently, and the other opponents just pretty much just the first one just didn't really draw that well, and I was able to get Guild off.
Mm-hmm.
Second one, do a ton of events, so
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
couldn't really establish their board. They were just swinging bigger numbers with with the characters they had and their leader, and then leaving a lot of Dawn open for their events. So they couldn't really establish their board. And I was able to see Dofi in both of those matchups, not multiple Dofis, but I was
Mm-hmm.
able to see I think 1 Dofi in one of the matchups and two Dofis in another. But when you establish your guild, you're able to just draw so many cards. So eventually, you're going to find multiple Dofis.
Mm-hmm.
Then I played. That would be so. It'd be around 5, 6, 7. Where did I play round 8? That's when I played Law. I was at a top table playing Law, and this deck is hard. In my opinion, it's hard to beat Law. I mean, the dude bricked. I bricked too. I didn't see any searchers. Didn't see anything, but I did start off with a sugar and a the Tony Chopper, the 2K
Mm-hmm.
2-drop that's able to rest something. So I was able to clear some of his board. But besides that, I made a crucial misplay. I should have just swung at one of his characters, at his Zoro instead of his Law blocker. I felt like I could get over it, but it wasn't enough, and he had enough counter in hand to be able to block out of it and then kind of go crazy. When I could have just probably gone for the Zoro and kind of secured it, or made him go for even more counter,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of goes against Law's game plan, but. That one misplay kind of messed me up, and then also I should have established. I think in that matchup, I learned that you have to establish your Uta blocker as early as possible, because being able to block something and then rest something else is incredible. And just being able to whittle down Law's fields, especially when if they don't have the Law blocker out, if you're able to just swing into 5K into a 2K Nami or a 5K into any of their blockers, or the Nami that uses Arrested Dawn to be able to put it underneath one of their characters or their leader. Doing that, swinging into those are going to be super beneficial, especially early game when they can't utilize their
Mm-hmm.
effects later on.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, Laws, if you're not seeing your Uta blockers, multiple Punk Gibsons and Sugars and Tony Choppers and stuff like that, it's a difficult match. And then the last round of Swiss played another Katakuri. Did not see a Thunderbolt to kill my Guild of Sorrows, so the next turn I played another one. So I'm like, okay, if you can't kill this one, then you can't kill 2. And it's trigger out of life was a Thunderbolt, so it ended up killing one of my Gildosaurus, but I already used the effect that next turn. So I'm like, this is fine, I'm okay. And then I was just able to stun him out with a Dofi. And then he established, I think, 3 Big Moms, but got no triggers until the end. So I think he got a blocker trigger, but I had a Sugar in hand, so playing Sugar rested the blocker and then just swing for game. But it was just complete board control that last game. But I was a little scared going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be too. And then your top 32 match. So it was best 2 out of 3, right?
Yeah, best 2 out of 3. So playing against the Zoro guy, game one, I took it. I just had board control. He was running a weird but really good Whitebeard like removal package. So the Whitebeard, it was just all Whitebeard pirate stuff, no Straw Hat stuff. It had 3 Fire Fists, two of the jet pistols, and then it had tons of just early DP or not DP, just power minusing. So I mean, he was running the Otama, 3 Gordons, and then 2 Blamenkos, which were really interesting. So I was able to establish and kill all of his. I was able to kill some Gordons and some Blamenkos early in the first game, which really helped. But in game two, he just had the nuts, just had everything to answer everything that I had. So that was unfortunate. But then game three, we had about 26 minutes left for game three, and we'd finish, the first 2 games in 34 minutes. So I'm like, okay, we can definitely finish game three in 26 minutes, and then still have 5-10 minutes of, I think it was 10 minutes of overtime, but it was still only two turns per player. But I'm like, we will definitely have enough time. It eventually ended up going all the way to overtime. They called overtime. I was turn 0. I had not done a single life the whole game. I was literally controlling the entire board. I had, I think, 3 blockers on board, and I think 3 blockers and a Nami on board, and then he had 1 card in hand and a leader, and so he had no characters on board. So if it would have went probably another, I don't know, couple turns, or like maybe like 5 or 10 minutes, then I probably could have put myself in a position to win. But being at turn 0, I had 4 swings, and then the next turn I would have had a couple more swings, but I chose to go for the board. I already chose to go for board that turn before they called time, so I was already two or three swings down. So I'm like, there's no way I can get you down to 0 life, and then it would come down to a tiebreaker after that. So I'm like, there's no way I can do that. So I just conceded at that point. But it just if I had maybe like 5 or 10 more minutes, I probably would have ended up winning because guy didn't have anything in hand. Had 1 character, but he did have a cracked life though. He had like, I think he had Fire Fist, Jet Pistol. What was that card called? The one that gives your leader plus 4K.
Oh, okay. Fiery Doll.
Fiery Doll, yep. And then another event, and then like a Curly or something. So I mean, his life was pretty stacked with events. But yeah, if I had 10 more minutes and could consistently see blockers, I think I would have had it because he didn't have anything that was an unblockable card in the whole deck. So
Okay.
just needed a little bit more time, and I would have been fine. But I'm not disappointed with the finish. Definitely. At least I lost the guy that won the tournament, so I can't complain.
Absolutely, yeah. And then he did end up saying that this was one of the hardest matchups. And now that you describe it a little bit, it kind of seems why. Really, I mean, time was on your side. And I know you're not a slow player by any chance. And I think Anthony, I've known him from Dragon Ball as well. It just happens to be, I guess, the overall strategy that you're taking is just similar to what Kid used to do, like the starved version of Kid. Like you try to control the board and then slowly chip away the life once you're in there.
Yep, exactly. So I mean, pretty much, especially in that Zoro match, because like your opponent's going to come out swinging really hard, really quickly, and you don't really have anything that can answer that board efficiently as quickly as they're putting down cards. So you kind of have to just survive until you can get to your Luffy turn, and then just be able to use your Luffys and your Utas to be able to block out of your opponent's swings. And just establishing the Uta early is really good because it makes your opponent swing in a non-optimal way, because they're going to swing they're always going to swing at their Marcos first instead of swinging at their little bodies first, because they want to get that Marco swinging because it's a free 7k. So if they're like, okay, I need to swing with my Marco first, and then I can swing with my little bodies after that. But Zoro usually wants to swing like 5, 5, 5, 5, and then swing with the 7 with the Marco, and then either more with the leader.
Mm-hmm.
or they'll put out more bodies or use an event or something like that. But forcing your opponent to swing with the Marco first instead of being able to tap it with the Uta effect, it just puts your opponent in a more unoptimal situation, I guess.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. And I guess you played a variety of matchups, and even Rebecca, which I thought I thought Rebecca should have a favorable matchup, but you didn't play it against Blue. How do you feel like your matchup against Blue is?
Haven't really done much testing against it, to be completely honest. Just depends on what they pulled, to be honest. Like blue is a very scary color if they pull what they need to. Being able to use your Miss All Sunday and recycle red rocks is really scary.
Mm-hmm.
Them being able to do that consistently and then bottom decking a Dofi is scary. But I feel like if I can go first and establish control over the board initially, then I'm fine. Because if I can go on my 7-drop turn, play a Luffy and play something else, and then and then play another Luffy and play something else after that, the next turn, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if they bottom deck or put two things back to hand. I'm still putting so much pressure on my opponent that like it's really hard for them to answer that. But if they have like the Centauro build and they can just keep swinging at me and just bringing out more bodies early,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like blue has a hard time with the early game, but it has an incredible late game.
Oh,
But
awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're
yeah.
trying to I feel like if I can answer the Centauro, if I pull sugars or use a Punk Gibson to rest their Centauro, then I'd be fine. But I feel like it all depends on what we both get in our opening hands. But I feel
Yeah.
like it's probably about like a 50-50, I would assume, or somewhere similar to that. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll be curious because at least the blue that we saw on stream for top, it was just I don't want to say disgusting, but it kind of was honestly because the board
Mhm.
control of that deck was just red rock, 3,000 rolls, leader effect, and just no one ever had a board. So I wonder because I think the one blue croc player that made it all the way to top eight also lost against the Zoro. So I wonder how that played out. But yeah, all right. So I think we went through everything. Any last thoughts? Anything that you would change about the deck?
Um, Not really. It's pretty like, in my opinion, this is a pretty standard list. Some people might not agree. Some people like the queens, but like I said, I think Queen is just a really hard card to play on your 5 down turn. So like if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have your Guild Tesoro, you always want to play your Diamante or whatever other your 5 cost character is. Some people are putting in Treble, which is the 5 cost on play option that's 5 or less. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's might be good to tinker with and look into, but I feel like it's just this doesn't have counter. It's kind of the
Yeah,
one
yeah. I
reason why
was
I go
thinking
with
about that. Yeah.
Diamante. In my opinion, anybody that runs Queen over Diamante is just running the deck wrong. The Queen is an incredible card. Being able to draw two and pitch a card that's useless in your hand is an amazing effect. But being or using the Queen any time before your 10 down turn is really hurts. And then by that time you already want your Guild Tesoro set up. So like sure, like you can establish the queen to draw two, discard one, but like I would rather use the Guild of Sorrow to be able to just Don -2, and then draw two, and then use this effect again next turn after I go to 10 Don again. So like minusing even more and not being able to threaten your opponent with the Dofi is I think not only just like the Dofi being actually used in in the game, like me playing the Dofi, that's very effective obviously, but even just threatening your opponent to like not swing, like okay, because they always ask me, I got asked so many times, okay, so how many down are you going to be at next turn? And then I play a Thunder Bagua and they're like, okay, so now you're going to be at 10 next turn, and they play their whole turn differently because I think I have Dofi.
Mm.
So just the threat of having a Dofi is really scary for most of your opponents.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I guess that's the power of the deck. Now it's not searchable, but I think on set five we are gonna get a searchable for the Don Quixote do Flamingo. Do you think the deck is gonna change at all, or do you think it's time to put the Flamingo away?
Yeah, it'll definitely change. It'll definitely be more of a Don Quixote Pirates centered deck, so it's going to use more of their searchers and just more of the Don Quixote family stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But so definitely it's gonna be throwing a lot of the film stuff out. But I probably won't be playing it. I don't think it's gonna be very good next set. With
Mm-hmm.
there's just too much aggression next set, especially with and other decks that are be able to like NLs be able to survive forever. But just the aggression of Purple Luffy, I think next set is just gonna be really hard for this deck especially to survive. But I think in my opinion, it is the Whitebeard killer. Just So if you have a lot of whitebeards in your locals, or if you're expecting a lot of whitebeards in your in like a major tournament, definitely think about playing this. It does lose kind of hard against Queen, in my opinion, if Queen opens optimally, which is kind of scary. But besides that, Law is a little hard of a matchup, and Katakuri can be iffy if you don't see the right cards and they just see the nuts. But besides that, definitely give Doflamingo a try.
Absolutely. All right. Well, any last shout-outs that you might have?
Yeah, shout out to the One Peach, everybody that went up to Knoxville with me, everyone, all the homies that have been playtesting with me. Shout out to you and Alyssa for everything you guys do. You guys are dope. Besides that, that should be it. Yeah, shout out to you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tyler. Well, we'll be seeing more about you. And this would have been your second top. I started with this, and I wanna end with this as well, just because we all know what happened. But hey, you got there. All right.
Yes, sir. We got there.
All right, man. Have a good rest of the night.
Thank you as well.